Pokemon as a franchise has grossed more money than the entire Barbie franchise, the entire Harry Potter franchise, and the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe combined. All three of those entire franchises combined have not been able to gross more money than Pokemon alone. And yet when you look at the reviews for Pokemon Legends Z-A, you look at the reviews for Scarlet and Violet, Sword and Shield, Legends Arceus, and even going as far back as Ultra Sun and Moon, you start to wonder, like, okay, if this franchise is making so much money, how is it possible that when you look at the reviews for the last decade's worth of Pokemon games, they haven't been able to hit a home run? I think I have the answer, folks. I think I know why Pokemon will continue to sell tens of millions of units every single time, despite everything going against it. We'll dive deep in to figure out what exactly is going on here, guys, and honestly you're probably not going to like it. It's not a topic that I take lightly and really want to talk about on the channel, but we have to talk about it because this Legends Z-A stuff is just so sad. But before we jump in, of course, what's going on, guys? Cheers. Now let's just get one thing out of the way up front here, okay? The crazy thing about talking about Pokemon on YouTube is that if you ever say anything negative, the Pokemon community will try to paint you as not a fan. Okay, I have literally every Pokemon game. Yes, these are DS cases, but these are the original cartridges. And by the way, this Pokemon Yellow version that I have right here, this is my original cartridge from when I was 4 years old, and this taught me how to read. And I'm not just a fan of the older stuff, okay? I have literally every single Pokemon game that you can imagine. I have them all, everything on the 3DS. I'm not going to get it all down, but you can see the rest of them up here, okay? And I don't just own these games, I've beat every single one of them. I've completed the Pokedex on probably half a dozen or more of these games, and yes, I went through the DLC of Sword and Shield, both of them, but Scarlet and Violet was a wake-up call for me, and I didn't buy the DLC. I didn't feel right continuing to give them money for the product that they put in front of me, and Legends Z-A is where I drew the line. When I saw the trailers for Legends Z-A, you might remember I made a video about this. When I saw the trailers, I couldn't believe how bad it looked. And as the release date got closer and closer and the trailers did not continue to look better, I solidified in my mind that this was going to be the first Pokemon game that I just don't buy. I'm simply not going to continue supporting a franchise that is not releasing quality and is not, frankly, worth the money, and it's clearly not what it used to be. So the TLDR is that I am a massive Pokemon fan. That is honestly just the truth, but as a fan of this franchise, I cannot in good conscience continue to sugarcoat the reality of what Pokemon has become. And this brings us to Pokemon Legends Z-A releasing tomorrow at the time of recording this. The Metacritic review currently sits at an 80. The open critic review score currently sits at an 81, with 77% of critics recommending it. And you might be looking at that and saying, well, Omniarch, that's a good score, right? 80. That's an 8 out of 10, 80%. In my high school, that would have been a B-, which is fine, right? That's a generally okay grade. The problem is that it is just more of the same. That's the problem. We got a 72 for Scarlet and Violet, an 83 for Legends Arceus, 73 for Brilliant Diamond, and then we have an 80 for Sword and Shield, 80 for Let's Go Pikachu, 84 for Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, 87 for Sun and Moon. So that's a pretty good score. That was 2016, so nearly a decade ago. All right, so we got to go back a decade to see a decent Pokemon score, but everything since then has been average, slightly above average maybe, but don't take my word for it. Let's see what the reviews actually say for the game. Okay, let's start with the positive. First of all, these two, the 6th Axis and VGC, I'm not even going to read their review, to be frank with you, because they gave it a 100. And if we are being intellectually honest, okay, let's just look at me in the eyes, okay? You and I both know, even as a diehard fan of the franchise, you know it's not perfect. Let's just be real, okay? These aren't perfect games. All right, so if you post a 100 out of 100, that review goes in the garbage because you are either so insanely biased that you can't see the flaws, or you are compromised financially. You're getting money under the table or something. I don't know. Listen, hey, I'm a goofball on the internet. All right, I'm not a journalist. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just giving you my thoughts and opinions here. So I don't actually know what's going on with VGC and the 6th Axis, but something's weird. Something's off. These games aren't perfect. It takes two. Just watch. You don't even need to buy it. Just look at the trailer. But let's see what Screen Rant has to say. They gave it a 90, so a 9 out of 10. For pros, they say real-time combat adds urgency, runs smoothly on Switch 2, wild zones and and battle zones are well balanced, and Mega Evolution is just as fun as ever. Okay, so we've got some really glowing positives for this game so far. They're saying that the new combat is great, it runs smooth on the new console, some praise for the zones and Mega Evolutions. Everyone loves Mega Evolutions, right? Game Reactor gave it a 7. Let's see what they said. Basically a well-functioning formula, increased focus on Pokedex and catching is still appealing, nice music, new battle system is actually solid. All right, so we see another positive for the battle system here. I've heard over on Twitter that the music is some of the best music that Pokemon has ever had, so I can believe that statement there. Let's see the negatives though, because a 7 out of 10, that means there's a couple of problems. All right, lack of voice acting is provocative. Highest grossing franchise in the world, by the way. Lumiose is boring. Oh, interesting. Who would have thought being in one city the whole game would be boring? I know there's outdoor areas. Don't leave the comment. 230 Pokemon is just a little too few, and strange restrictions on Arceus's freedom. Okay, so we start to see some of the cracks in the armor here. And you know, as you guys know, Pokémon Legends Z-A, or maybe you don't know, it did leak on Twitter a couple of days ago. I haven't covered the leaks for 2 reasons. First of all, it is wedding season, and this weekend I'm going to be going to my 3rd wedding in the last like 2 weeks. Okay, my schedule has been insane with weddings. And 2, I don't want to cover leaks on the channel because Nintendo will eventually come after you. Okay, but needless to say, Twitter's been a mixed bag about the game for the last couple of days, and the 234 Pokemon, or whatever it actually comes out to be, is a very low number. It's similar to what was in Arceus, but we know for sure that a lot of the Pokemon that they will add to the game is deliberately removed from the base game to sell you the DLC. This is not controversial. This is a fact. Everyone knows this. This has been commonplace in the gaming industry for like 15 years now. All right, so we've looked at a couple of pros, we've looked at a couple of cons. Now let's take a look at the graphics comparison. Now this comparison was posted on YouTube by El Analista de Bits, and I'm going to link it in the description below if you guys want to just like literally watch the whole thing. But here we can see docked Switch versus Switch 2 and handheld Switch versus Switch 2. And as you can see, first of all, I would simply never play this game in handheld mode on the original Switch. It just looks like a blocky, blurry mess. And yes, I do have this video loaded in 4K, so any blurriness that you're seeing here is not me, it's not the compression. This is the highest possible quality that I have loaded here on the screen for you. Again, you can just straight up watch the video if you don't believe me. And the best part about the screenshot I'm showing you right now is that you actually see pop-in in the screenshot. You can see this individual right here looks like they are made of simply dots, and that's because they are in the middle of just simply popping into the frame. Okay, let's take a look at this screenshot. This one's been floating around over on Twitter. The ground texture is definitely improved on the Switch 2. Everything else looks about the same. The shadows look the same, the Pokemon models look the same, the player character looks the same. Yeah, I mean, okay, the back wall, even the back wall texture looks similar. Can we all agree there's no upgrade here? Like what we're looking at, there's really no, I mean, no perceivable difference. The only reason you can tell there's a difference is because they're side by side. Let's look at this one, Switch versus Switch 2. You can see that there is less fog in the background for the Switch 2. So like the buildings are obviously loaded in sooner and they look better at a distance. I guess the ground texture looks a little bit better on the Switch 2. The cobblestone doesn't really look much different at all. If we progress the video slightly here, we'll notice that there's a small girl loaded in on the Switch 2, not on the Switch 1. Let's see if that changes. Okay, then it pops in on the Switch 1 after. But watch this, the Mareep right here, the Mareep just phases into existence. Okay, so even on the Switch 2, we have noticeable pop in still. But one thing that I want to share with you guys about this clip, and I will give the Switch 2 credit here, when you watch the game in motion, obviously the 60 frames and the upscaling, it looks better on the Switch 2 for sure. I mean, in fact, the jagged nature of the Switch 1 gameplay in terms of frame rate is jarring. I don't know if I'd even be able to play it truthfully. Like, it is actually technically quite bad. Highest grossing franchise in the world, by the way. Take a look at the frame rate here and some battles. All right, and again, I'm not going to show you this whole video, and I'm not cherry picking, I'm just jumping around randomly. You can watch the video down below and you can decide for yourself if you think that this looks like some quality gameplay. But I think anyone being genuinely honest with themselves will watch this video and they will look at the comparison side by side and they will arrive at the conclusion that the upgrade from the Switch 1 to 2 is minor, to say the least. The biggest upgrade is the frame rate. 30 to 60 frames is, I mean, that is a big jump and it is noticeable 100%, but everything else is like, And here's what Kotaku had to say: Pokemon Legends Z-A looks hardly any different running on Switch 1 versus Switch 2. So it's not just me. The internet at large is coming to this conclusion all on their own, and they go on to say that according to one of the first comparison videos of the game running on both consoles, the differences are hardly noticeable outside of it running at 60 frames per second on the newer hardware. That is literally what I just said. That is the biggest upgrade. That is what you're paying for, and that is pretty much it. So let's go back to the reviews here for a second. All right, again, an 80 out of 100, B minus. Okay, that is an average, maybe slightly above average in terms of scoring, and with a negligible improvement on the Switch 2 edition. What do we get from Legends Z-A? New combat system. And besides that, it's more the same. It's in the same ballpark as all the reviews from the last 8 years. Okay, so what this means, if you're wondering, is Legends Z-A gonna melt your face off? Is Legends Z-A the game that you've been waiting for? Is it the game that's gonna get you back into the franchise? Is it this open world technical marvel that looks gorgeous that you've been dying for since you were a kid? No, it's none of that. It is none of that. This is just another Pokemon game. It is really that simple. This is yet another 8 out of 10 Pokemon game, as we've seen for the last 8 years. If you haven't liked the most recent games, you're probably not going to like this one, unless the battle formula is the one thing that's been holding you back. But really, I don't think the battling of Pokemon has been the main focal point of contention. I think it's everything surrounding it that people dislike. The game is new enough to give Pokemon fans a reason to buy it, but it is not new. It is not game changing. It is not a massive departure from the franchise. It is not going to blow your mind. It is not something special. It is just another Pokemon game. And I think that's the best way to put it. It is just another Pokemon game. That's it. And I know there's going to be a tough guy in the comments who's like, this guy's talking about a game he's never even played. Look, I'm not a pilot, but when I see a plane crash, I know enough to realize that something ain't right. Okay, sure, I can't sit here and give you a full review of the entire game, and that's not what this video is about. The game's not even out yet. Okay, but my point is, we have more than enough data to come to some pretty solid conclusions here. And remember when the trailers came out for Pokemon Legends Z-A, and there was this big backlash about how bad the balconies and windows looked in the game, and all the average Pokemon consumers rushed to their defense on Twitter saying, oh no, the game, it's just a beta, the game's not out yet, they're not finished with it. And here we are. They were wrong yet again. We see that the size of the buildings are literally two-dimensional. They couldn't even put in the flowers. They just glued the flowers on. There's no balconies in this game. It is quite literally all two-dimensional. Now there's some awnings and stuff. I'm being facetious, but like, I mean, look, I don't even have to explain it. Just look at it with your eyeballs. Okay, the buildings are flat, they lack detail, and that's because this was built for the Nintendo Switch, which is over a decade old when it comes to actual hardware performance. I know it came out in 2017, and this is the second video in a row where I have to say I told you so, and I have to not feel good about it, because again, when the trailers came out for the game, I called it. I knew it was going to be more of the same, just enough to get the Pokemon fans excited. There's been a massive marketing push, especially in Japan, with like full-on celebrities. Like, the game is average at best and a technical disaster at worst. I mean, if we're being genuinely honest, graphically it is unimpressive, and even from an art design perspective, like the actual art direction is just non-existent. In fact, like the Pokemon and the characters, everything looks like cheap plastic. Like there's no actual like artistic vision here. Like if we look back at what Ken Sugimori's original art for Pokemon was, we have the iconic watercolor style. This is a art style. It is so obvious when you see this art style, you think of Ken Sugimori, you think of Pokemon in the late 90s and early 2000s. There is no identity to the art style of Pokemon anymore. It is literally stock Unity assets. The game looks like shit. It just does. I'm sorry. And so once again, I'm sorry to say I told you so, but here's the thing, right? And this is the number one thing that the Pokemon fans love to say. Well, if the games are so bad, why does it sell millions and millions of copies? And that's what we're going to talk about here, because I wouldn't be surprised if Pokemon Legends Z-A sells as well as Legends Arceus. I would be a little surprised if it sold significantly more than that. Like if it sells more than 20 million units, I will be surprised, because Legends Arceus sold less than 15 million units. If it sells better than Scarlet and Violet, I will genuinely be shocked. I will quite literally be shocked. I would put the sales for this game anywhere from 9 to 13 million. That's what I would guess. Maybe it'll be a little bit more, because the marketing push has been like tremendous for this game. And by the way, I think the insane amount of marketing they're doing for this game is evidence that Pokemon does not feel that the quality of the game will get it organic sales. Do you understand what I'm saying? They want to sell on day one based off of hype, and that is it. They want everyone to know there's a new Pokemon game, so that way they go out and buy it. They don't expect people to get their hands on it and spread word of mouth, right? Because once you get it, you're going to get, I mean, you saw the footage, that's what you're getting, right? You're not going to spread positive sentiment through word of mouth on that. It's just going to be another average Pokemon game, and you're going to get bored of it in 10 hours. But okay, so let's just agree that this game's going to sell 15 million copies. All right, let's just call it 15. Why does a franchise that continuously releases average or below average games sell so incredibly well every single time? Is it because of the gameplay? Maybe. Okay, maybe. But the truth is, and I'm gonna do something I don't normally do here. All right, I'm gonna give you guys a trigger warning. We're gonna talk about mental health. All right, I'm serious. We're gonna talk about mental health here. I genuinely believe that a large percentage of the Pokemon fan base that mindlessly buys these games, they buy them without even looking up anything, no reviews, no nothing. They know it's a new Pokemon, they buy it, right? That is their behavior here. I think a large percentage of those people obviously grew up with the franchise, and they're older now, okay? And we look back on the early 2000s and we are fond of those days. And I don't know if you noticed lately, but things aren't looking so good around the world at this point in time. And you know, I'm not going to say it's the worst point in history. There's been worse points. Just Google it for 2 seconds. Okay. But even still, there's a lot of negativity in the world right now. Okay. Financially, people might be struggling. We're older now, right? I mean, I was born in 94. Okay. So my fellow 90s babies, what up? You can leave a comment down below. But we're in our late 20s, early 30s now. And life's hard when you're at this point. You know, I mean, people have lost loved ones. People might be in between jobs. There's a lot that life throws at you when you get to be, you know, this age, you know, from 27 and onward, I would say, right? And there's just a lot to deal with. And I think what Pokemon represents for my generation is escapism. They can, with Pokemon, through Pokemon, escape their reality. Tiger just can't help herself but to walk across my desk when I'm filming. Isn't that right, Tiger? You just have to interrupt. At least tell them to like and subscribe. All right, can you do that for me, please, Tiger? Anyway, Pokemon offers an opportunity for an entire generation of people to escape their real life for 20, 30, 40 hours. They can go back to catching them all like they did back in the early 2000s, and you know, they can kind of fall back into the good old days, right? It is their connection to their childhood. It is their reminder of a world that was better, of a world that was okay. And I think, I mean, look, you don't need me to tell you this, but like ever since 2020, I feel like mental health issues have been alarmingly high. A lot of people haven't been doing too great. And I think that when it comes to Pokemon, they don't actually evaluate the games honestly, logically, or anything like that. They don't want to. They don't want to logically look at what is in front of them. They want this to be the one good thing that they can go back to and feel warm and fuzzy inside about. Okay, that is what Pokemon represents to them. It is not a video game franchise. It is their small sliver of solace and small sliver of escapism to get away from all the negativity that they've been experiencing for the last better part of a decade. And so when I come on here in front of the camera and I say, look, guys, I love Pokemon, I genuinely do, but the last better part of a decade has been garbage. Almost objectively, they're feeding us low quality slop time and time again. I get hate for that. I get pushback from that because people respond emotionally, not logically, emotionally. They are emotionally attached to this franchise because they use it as a crutch. They use it as a way to go back to the good old days. And I understand that, right? I totally get, that's me. It's literally me, right? Up until the DLC for Scarlet and Violet, that was me. But no one's talking about this. No one's talking about the mental health nature of video games and how it actually impacts your purchase decision. Everyone knows, if you study sales and marketing, that a majority of sales and purchases are made emotionally, not logically. You might think that it's logical, because you've done the research and, oh, I know what the best laptop for the money is, right? But there is an overwhelming amount of data to support that a vast majority of your purchases are emotional or knee-jerk point of sale purchases. Okay, you don't have to believe me, you can look that up for yourself if you want to, but my point is, for a lot of people, Pokemon is not just a gaming franchise. They need Pokemon to be viewed favorably because they need Pokemon. Quite literally, they literally need that. They need that positivity, they need that light, they need that escape from the negativity, and they can't bear to hear critical evaluations of their favorite franchise, because if they lose Pokemon, what else do they have? They don't, that is their one escape. That is the one thing that they can go back to and feel good about, right? But two things can be true at the same time. You can love Pokemon and you can stop supporting it. You can stop buying it. You can revisit the older games and still feel the way that you used to feel. But being a true fan of something means that you can critique it when it needs to be critiqued. My goal with a video like this is to get more people to hold the Pokemon company accountable for releasing quality content as the highest grossing media franchise in the world. We deserve better, like straight up, we actually do. If you're gonna spend $70 on the base game plus 20 for the DLC or whatever it is, and you're gonna buy Nintendo Online so that way you can play online to get the Mega Greninja or whatever, if you're gonna spend all that money, you deserve a quality product, and Pokemon hasn't been able to give us a quality product in, again, the better part of a decade. Sun and Moon came out in 2016. I think X and Y are really looked back on. X and Y and Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, I think those are really looked back on a little bit more favorably than Sun and Moon for sure. And what do you know, Pokemon agrees, because why do you think they brought back Mega Evolutions? They brought it back because that's the thing that people love the most about the last time Pokemon was good. Anyway, my point is that Pokemon Legends Z-A is more of the same. It is low quality. It does not perform super well. It is not graphically impressive. The art style is uninspiring, and quite frankly, the game still looks about as bad as it did in the trailers, and you're not going to be blown away. You're really not going to be blown away. You might be impressed by the sound design, maybe, right? That's pretty good, but the game fundamentally is just more of the same. It's not very good. I mean, what do you want me to say? And despite that, it will still sell between 10 and 15 million units because people have an unhealthy emotional relationship with Pokemon, and they return to this franchise when they're not feeling the best, when they're feeling down, they're feeling sad, life is getting really hard. They return back to how they were when they were a kid, and that's okay. But you still should demand quality out of the franchise that you're giving all of your time and money to. That's really what it comes down to. Anyway, if you made it to the end of the video, drop a thumbs up on it. Really helps out small channels like mine. Thank you to everyone who's been using the hype feature lately on my channel. It's been really tremendously helpful. Subscribe if you're new here. You might think you're sub, but you're actually not. And comment down below your thoughts on Legends Z-A. Let me know what you think. And with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Omniarch. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Peace.